Let's get rolling. Welcome to the Band of Brothers podcast. I'm here with, do you go by Stefan or Stefan?
Really either.
Which do you prefer?
I'm truly indifferent. So, my parents have always said Stefan, and then I, for the longest time, said Stefan. And it wasn't until I got the job here that I was like, I want to try and be a little more professional and say my name the way it should be, Stefan. So,
Stefan.
when
Okay,
I
well,
say
let's
I'm
go with that.
indifferent, I really mean it.
Sounds good, bud. Well, thank you for joining us and welcome to who's ever listening. And appreciate you being willing to share your story with whoever out there might be listening and give some people some hope that recovery is possible. So let's just start at the beginning. Like how old were you the first time you had a mind altering substance, beer, weed, anything that altered your mind?
Um, I mean, I guess, started whatever, sneaking some, drinking some vodka that my friends snuck into school probably around seventh grade. Um, yeah, I remember the watermelon vodka and Sprite, and then started smoking weed probably a year after that. But uh, I really think the addiction even started before that because I was on Adderall and antidepressants, and I remember a specific moment when I was taking those medications and I hated them, that one of my loved ones says to me, because I said I wanted to get off them. So I go off for like a week, and you're going through that like up and down that happens when you get off of like Zoloft and Adderall, 13 years old on 30 milligrams twice a day of Adderall, right? There's going to be some side effects when you come off. And uh, yeah, and this person says to me, I like you better on your meds. And I remember like in those words, literally having the thought process of like, man, I have to have something in me to be liked by my loved ones, right? And yeah, I really think that like if I were to pinpoint a moment, it was like literally that sentence that started that trajectory for me.
And you were 13 at the time?
Yeah, I was probably about 13, 14 when that was said. Yeah.
Yeah. So you had some ADD, ADHD?
Yeah, yeah, and depression. I moved around a lot as a kid. Got bullied a lot, lived in the Bible Belt. My family wasn't religious, and kids would ask, what family or what church does your family go to? I'd say, oh, we don't go to church. And they'd ask, well, what faith are you? I said, I actually have no idea. I'd never even asked my parents. And when I did start to ask, they always would say, it doesn't matter what we believe. What matters is what you believe.
Hmm.
Um, so I didn't have a whole lot of friends and things. And then my dad went to Iraq for a couple of years, and I expressed that, hey, I think I might be suicidal.
Hmm.
And then my mom put me in therapy, and then it was the pills and all that stuff. And I was a zombie for a little bit.
So was your dad in the military?
Yeah, he retired though when I was like 5, and then we moved to Florida so he could get his pilot's license, Alabama. So he had a job for 2 years, then out to Texas for a year, Pennsylvania for a year, Georgia for 5 years. When we were in Georgia, he did civilian contracting in Iraq for 2.5 years. So
So did
yeah,
you go with him there, or was he away from the home
go with him where?
to Iraq?
Oh no, no, no,
Okay,
no. He was over there running security detail for like politicians and stuff. So he's gone for about, you know, 6 to 8 months at a time, home for about 3 weeks and then back.
gotcha.
Yeah.
And so you were moving around all over the place though, on top of
All
that.
over the place. By the time I landed in Utah when I was 15, this was the seventh state I'd lived in.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how many other brothers and sisters did you have?
I just got one older brother that I know
Okay.
of.
So tell me how the disease kind of progressed for you. What happened next as far as addiction or
uh,
just life
huh?
or just life stuff?
So really, um, I had a tough time from all that moving around, just connecting with people in general.
Mm-hmm.
um you start to develop that like sense of no permanence to
Mm-hmm.
anything. um and so you don't feel like that empathy or the connection, or you're afraid to connect with people, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
like I would emotionally like jump really quickly into things, right? Like especially as you become a teenager and your first girlfriends, you're jumping really into it quickly, just because I felt that I hadn't had someone who, I guess, emotionally validated me or things like that. So codependency definitely was a big part early on.
Okay.
um, Especially when we like came out to Utah, where I
How did
was
you
like,
end up in Utah?
so when my dad was coming back from Iraq, uh, he basically was between three places, right? Because he's always liked the desert kind of climates, and it was between Flagstaff, St. George, or the United Arab Emirates. And they landed on St. George because they had put me in the lottery for Tuacahn, the theater high school that used to be here,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I was accepted in, and so they're like, St. George it is.
Wow. So you're an
Yeah.
actor or musical
I
or?
did like the tech stuff, like and really that I just did that more as a numbers game. I was more into the drama part of it, although I was very nervous. I was a lot more stage shy.
Mhm.
But that's what I wanted to do. However, I knew that like when looking into that school, I just played the numbers game where the tech academy had like four times more seats than any other academy that you could apply in the lottery for, and half the applicants as any other academy. So
Mhm.
your chances of getting in, if you were going for light, sound, and all that nerd stuff, was pretty good, and I liked it a lot.
Yeah, my daughter almost went there, well, I don't know, 8 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, it was a great freaking school. Yep.
Yeah. It's not open anymore?
No, they had some issues with the board members, shut down and reopened, minus, that board member at the Utah Arts Academy, and they had to move locations. So now that whole thing is just the professional theater.
Gotcha.
And the rest of the building, they built apartments there for like the actors and stuff. So
Oh, yeah. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
So you're in St. George now, and
yeah.
how is your disease progressing? What's happening there?
So I started, drinking and smoking weed and all, lots of cigarettes and cigars, or well, Swisher Sweet cigarillos. Um, from basically 13 to 15, we moved out here, and I guess I kind of was, had that realization of like, oh man, I'll be, graduating from this place. There's no more moving around, and
Hmm.
so uh, I tried to get to know people, but had a lot of, I guess, difficulty with it. And again, I'd get really emotionally invested very fast. I didn't know how to deal with that. Right, I was very awkward. Um, so really quickly, I started smoking pot, make things a little bit easier. Socially for me. Um, and I mostly, stayed a pothead. When I was 16, I had major spine surgery, from T5 to L3. If you're familiar with the spinal column, is
Hmm.
all metal. Yeah, two rods, 14 screws. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, they had prescribed me some painkillers, but I was like really hippie at that time. Just, oh yeah, no, it's not natural. So I mean, I took them for about 2 weeks, and then I got rid of the rest and just was sticking with the weed, and thank God for that. Um, Otherwise, I think I would have gone downhill a lot faster. The day after we came back from the 5 days in the hospital, uh, my mom packed up the dogs and all of her stuff, and she left with her, you know, guy that she had met online, and bye. And then it got really difficult because my dad at this time, he's a pilot, and he's still a pilot, but he was he had two jobs, 7 on, 5 off. So he was home for a grand total of like 24 hours every week because one week he was flying, the next week he was teaching classes at the Pentagon.
Hmm.
And so
And
I
you're
was just,
16 when mom leaves.
mhm.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so I'm home alone all the time, nothing but my thoughts and, you know, reeling from the divorce and things. And I was battling my depression pretty hard. And so I really leaned into the social interactions, without my dad there. It's like, hey, every Friday we're having parties. And that was the thing. Like, I was going to school just so I could be around people, right? I couldn't stand being at the house. After my surgery, I was supposed to be on my back for 9 weeks at home. I did 5 days in the hospital, 1 week at home. Then my mom had left though. And so I'm home alone just dealing with that by myself. And I was like, I'm not doing this. I went right back to school.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, because they couldn't tell me no. So I got big into the partying, just, again, drinking heavy, smoking heavy, here and there, like cough syrup or, laced, weed with cocaine. And it wasn't until after high school, really. So because of the back surgery, my kind of plan to join the military went out the window.
Mm-hmm.
So I had no idea what the hell to do with myself. Like, I had a whole like mental breakdown on the day I graduated high school because I was like, now what, right? I had no plan of what tomorrow would hold, right? But I know I don't have school to go back to see people, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what I want to do. Like, what do I want to be when I grow up, right? I still haven't even been a kid yet. Like, and so um, so yeah, I kind of just took off. I literally uh, had a little red suitcase I found on the side of the road that I put a couple of pairs of clothes in, some books, and tied it to my back with a shirt, and I just biked out. And my dad
Wow.
said, hey, you made your choice. And we had a pretty estranged relationship for a while. And um, it wasn't too long after that. So I had been selling weed for a while, and that was how I kind of made my living. But then when some of the squatting options had kind of run out after about
So you
six,
down
eight
in
months,
St. George during all this, or did you relocate?
I was in St. George still.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I had been kind of doing some squatting around, and that kind of came to an end. And, I was just hopping from here to there. And every once in a while, I'll find somebody's whatever RV in their driveway, freaking, because a lot of people here, don't lock doors and just go sleep in their RV, a couple nights. And finally end up living in this shed outside of somebody's house who I had met, an acquaintance. And me and this other guy are living in that shed. And money's still hard to come by, and I wanted to get up out of that. And i enjoyed I enjoyed selling drugs because I felt needed, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed the social part of it. I enjoyed having money and these things. And I felt that there was like a freedom to it, even though you're tied to your phone morning to night. And then it only got worse because I said, I see all these people, doing these pills. And so, start asking, the dealers, hey, what else, do you dabble in? And, start selling some ecstasy on the side. And then the big one was the painkillers. Um, so start selling some of the oxy. And a little while into that, like, I'd moved into this one guy's basement with, my girlfriend. Um, and yeah, I'm just selling drugs out of his basement. And I had this guy who is kind of big, scary looking Mexican fella. And he would just kind of come with me places and people wouldn't really mess with me. And one day we're at a party and, says to me, oh yeah, let's smoke a couple of these. And I said, no, man, I'm about my money. I like the weed, I like, the drinking, but the pills are, for all these people out here, right? And so he hands me the cash and he says, there, I bought them. And we go into a garage and, smoked a couple, and it was the taste, the feeling, suddenly like the lights got a little, brighter for a second. And, just like the book says, I had arrived,
Hmm.
like that was it. Like, probably not 30 days after that, I'm probably doing, 10 to 20, 30 milligram pills every day.
Wow. So that
And
progressed pretty quick in that area, huh?
oh, very quickly.
Yeah.
Every time I went on a deal, oh yeah, let's match some and let's do this. And I was doing runs out to Vegas and California and doing, little pill mills all around all over the place. And then I'm selling every pill under the sun because we have these doctors who will, write them for cash, and, it's very discreet. And um, so I'm selling all the things to basically now pay for my own habit. And now my habit, though, is cutting into my ability to make it to do all these hustles. And so what was easier is, then there's heroin. So, because, I don't do the heroin. Everyone else does the heroin. I'm into the oxys. I'm not into the heroin. So,
Hmm.
logically, of course. So I start selling the heroin. Uh, and then one day the pills run out. And someone was like, oh, yeah, just try some of the heroin. Okay, just this once. And then next thing you know, you know, there's a gram of heroin plus 10, 15, pills every day.
Right.
And it got so bad so quick, right? But I was making just enough money to, supply my habit. And I'd really only ever gone through that one day of, well, my first experience of withdrawal was my 19th birthday. I actually went out to Tokyo to visit my brother, and I didn't realize that because he was going to college out there. And um, yeah, I didn't really know like that withdrawal would be like that. And I landed in Tokyo with nothing, not thinking about it. And boy, I was out there for 5 days, and I was hurting, you
Right.
know. And yeah, come back, and that's never going to happen again. And that was when it was just the pills. But so fast forward to the heroin and pills days, then um yeah, I mean, we're just going all over the place. I'm, paying some people money on each end of town because I didn't have a car, wasn't interested in getting a car. I just walked everywhere. If you're familiar with the book or the movie Into the Wild, my
Yeah.
my nickname was Super Tramp. I had the long hair, no shirt, no shoes, all of 120 pounds. You just see me barefoot walking on the blacktop in the middle of summer out here. And it was just, you know, I would pay people, a couple $100 a month on every end of town, so that it's like, hey, if I end up over on this side of town, I just want to know that I can crash at your house any night I like, right? Um, and I was okay with that, and I was going nowhere fast, and like my appetite was so little and everything, like I could pretty much tear off my fingernails like they were paper.
Hmm.
If I tried to eat anything harder than, basically a sandwich, my gums would start bleeding from smoking on foil. And um, yeah, there was a time out in Bullhead City where, shot up for the first time, had someone do it for me with a Dilaudid, uh, and I loved that, but I knew my girlfriend would be very against the needle thing. And so, uh, that was just a maybe once or twice a month, when she wasn't around, she'd go back to her folks' house for a couple nights, and, then I go do that. Um, and, and so somehow managed to get an apartment, that my dad co-signed on. He didn't realize that I was into all of these things at the time. Like, he thought that we were kind of doing better with our relationship. And Um,
So he hadn't seen you, obviously, or were you just always that skinny and that, or is that part of
I
it?
was always pretty damn skinny,
Okay.
you know. Yeah, all of this is pretty new developments. Yeah, I was a scrawny kid. I don't think I broke 100 pounds till I was 15. Um, and so yeah, I was really skinny. My dad knew I was a pothead or whatever, but I'd lie to him, telling him, I was whatever, doing these little jobs, making some money here and there, and I had saved up this, and I had a real job on the horizon, and so he co-signed for me to get an apartment out here, and I was there for a few months working at a call center, um, which wasn't any good because everyone there also was doing drugs. Call centers, it's rampant, and
Hmm.
the oxys were the fashionable thing at the time. Utah was leading that opiate epidemic, by a mile.
Right. Right.
And, so then I just was making more money because everyone who I worked with was now a customer, and yeah, and I was doing well, making decent money doing that, and probably 3-4 months into it, uh, on May 10th of 2012, some guys broke into my apartment, um, and I shot one of them in the leg with an AK-47.
Wow.
And and that part was legal. What wasn't legal was them finding, um, a stem of weed on my nightstand and having a gun and drugs in the same place. Um, and so, second degree felony, restricted person with a firearm, and then a misdemeanor, possession and paraphernalia.
So these just random dudes, or are they people you knew, or people you'd worked you?
They were they were friends of my girlfriend's, because my rule was you don't bring people over to the apartment, right? But I go to work, I come back, and she always has friends over, and they're doing the drugs. And told her I didn't like any of her friends and didn't trust them, and and then the one who I said the most, he'd come over and be asking a lot of questions about, where's this and how do I do this and that, and uh, yeah, yeah, he showed up with two other people and a getaway driver, and two guys were coming in the back door at about 8 in the morning. Um, I will say, freaking, thank God for the cutthroat pieces of crap that people that work in telemarketing is, because they apparently had called my work to ask if I was there. And someone figured, we're doing telemarketing sales. So they figured it was a sale. So they were trying to poach my sale. So they picked
Mhm.
up and said they were me.
Oh, wow.
And that was their green light. And they came into my apartment and, found out real quick. And yeah, I remember, like, I was asleep, but I could hear the banging. And then next thing you know, I'm being shaken awake. My girlfriend's like, wake up, there's people trying to come into the house. And so I just, stand up, pull on some drawers and go to the, closet, load up, and, come down the hallway. There's a guy probably 8 feet in front of me. And, growing up with a military dad, all that, gun training, and, what's behind my target, and, this, that, assess the whole situation. And dude was unarmed, looked like he was about to piss himself. And I knew that, the apartment on the other side had probably about 8 people in there from a party the night before. And so I didn't shoot him. But he had come in through the back, and my front door still boom, 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 boom. And yeah, suddenly I see a leg in, and I just swing and shoot, F you, and bam. And yeah, and then I turn back around. Now, hey, I am going to shoot whoever's over this way. I don't care anymore, but they're already out the back. I just hear screaming, he's got a gun. And yep. So I just sat there for a minute, almost ended up shooting my neighbor by accident, because like right as I was unloading, neighbor runs up with their hand outstretched, coming up my stairs, through the back porch, holding a cell phone. Cops are on the phone, they want to talk to you. And scared the crap out of me. And But yeah, saw it, recognized it, was on the phone. Hey, my name's Stefan Prokay, and I'm at this address, and I just shot a guy, and guns on the ground, magazine next to it, um, and I will be outside. And I went outside and I bummed a cigarette from the neighbor and stood out there, bullshitting for all of the about one more minute it took for 20 cop cars to start showing up, Say, hey, you guys know Stefan? Hey, me. Everything was all good till they decided to, search the house. And there was, just they only found the one stem of weed on my nightstand and some rolling papers. And then that was, first time getting arrested. And I remember one time when I was like 14, 15, I'm pretty sure my dad was saying it just jokingly. He said, you guys get one bailout in your lifetime. And so, I'm sitting there in jail. Hey, Dad, some guys broke into my house and I shot one. I had some weed. And you remember that time you said you would bail me out once? And yeah, so he bailed me out. And then I was homeless again, obviously kicked out of the apartments. And yeah, and then my girlfriend and I, like, my habit just had gotten way worse after that. I was really frustrated. I go back to that job, and I had a little bit of a flip out because I showed up there, a couple days after the whole thing happened, and they have this whiteboard that has, each team and then their weekly quota.
Mm-hmm.
My quota on there was to shoot someone, with the, check. And my name had been changed to shooter. And I came in and everyone's clapping, dude. And I just, fuck all you, I quit. you know, um, I don't know. Like I couldn't make it through a whole day. Like I flipped out about that. Um, but I'd been sleeping well. I mean, it didn't, like, the thing that bothered me for probably 2, 3 weeks was the what could have happened if I wasn't there, freaking my
Right.
girlfriend was all of, 80 pounds soaking wet, and yeah, that was the only thing that really had bothered me. And about 2 months later, I get caught up with some pills and heroin. We were staying at a guy's house, about to move into another place, so we just stayed at someone's house for a night. And he calls his parents, who live 3 doors down, while he's, getting loaded in the bathroom. And he starts apparently like nodding out on the phone. I don't know if he OD'd or what, but next thing you know, police and ambulance are all coming in. And I'm just laying there on the couch, and hey, we need to search you. And he said no, but I'm out on bail, so I don't really have a choice. And yeah, and then there I am in jail again. And while I was in there, um, I had a really beautiful experience. Actually, there was a guy in there that he had owed me some money. I didn't really care for the guy, but he's in there and he just seems kind of at peace. Like he was, very, very different person. And we're just there on the intake block, and why are you here? And he's like, well, I'm on probation, and I just got done with rehab, and I whatever violated, basically I was late for curfew or something like that, and I'm on a 72-hour hold. And I had never even like really thought of rehab, like,
Mm-hmm.
because at that time there wasn't much options like down here in St. George, at least not that I knew of. And I thought rehab was all a cult and blah blah blah, and they were going to try and convert me or something. But I just saw how at peace this dude was, and I
Mm-hmm.
wanted that. And so, what rehab did you go to? Well, I went to the Salvation Army. And so uh, yeah, I didn't even really do much research, man. I just started making some phone calls.
Was that the
They
first time
went,
you'd ever thought about, hey, maybe I got a problem, or had you come to
yeah,
that conclusion at some point, other point?
that was the first time I'd ever really thought about it. Like when I was in jail that second time, and it only taken 2.5 months. Like was it that I thought I had a problem because, again, I had a girlfriend, I had a job, for a brief moment I had a place, right? And so I didn't think there was a problem, right? I felt I was a functional drug addict, right? And that, oh, I can do this, right? I sell to lawyers too that, they can do pills and heroin, so can I, you know. I'll make it through this. And so it wasn't until I got caught up the next time, and that I really was like, man, I am not doing good at this, right? I'm not bringing in the money I was, and things are bad, in that 2 months, in the time we had lost the apartment. I guess I should, yeah, back up for a minute. Was like, things got so bad, right? And a lot of people didn't want to, supply me anymore because, my face had been all over the freaking newspaper for,
Mhm.
a week or so. Like, I think I was on the front page in Salt Lake. And it was so it was this big freaking thing, and I couldn't like get the drugs, so I couldn't sell the drugs. I'm going through withdrawals. I'm having, trouble. We're staying at my girlfriend's mom's house for a little bit, and she has a brother that he's just, drunk all the time and taking stuff. And uh I got someone to front me some pot, and I had made the money and was supposed to, pick up some more. And I come back, and he had taken all the money and taken off to California to go chase some girl on the internet. and so now I have people who are not only, not selling to me, but now I've got a guy who's pissed at me. And so I go get a job over at freaking Denny's washing dishes graveyard because, dude, I'm so broke. I don't have, food. I don't have food stamps. I don't have shit. And so I'm walking 6-7 miles, to Denny's so I could work the dishwashing job, make a couple bucks. And I'm eating the food that's coming in on the, line, because I'm starving, right? And I won't
Mhm.
I won't beg for food. I won't ask for these things, right? And I didn't want to apply for food stamps or government assistance, right? I was like, no, I'm not one of those people, right?
Right.
That was my terminal uniqueness right there. And and yeah, and then I'd walk all the way home, shift ends at 3 a.m. and walk home. And it was miserable. And so I go to jail again, and I'm just like, yeah, I think I got a problem. And I see what this dude has, and I know that I would not stand a chance in drug court. And now I'm in jail facing 3 second-degree felonies, 3A misdemeanors. And so I didn't even do research on it. I just started making the calls, said, hey, I want to go to the Salvation Army. I heard there's a really good program in Seattle, right? So um, next thing you know, I'm telling my attorney, I said, hey, I don't want to do drug court. Ask the judge if we can do a plea in abeyance and send me to rehab, and then I'll come back and I'll do the second half of drug court. I don't care, but I need to get away from St. George.
Mhm.
And we go in front of the Honorable Judge Shoemate, who he was excellent judge down here. He brought the drug court program out here, and
Mhm.
man, that dude's an absolute star, I'll tell you. St. George lost a big asset when he finally retired. But anyway, we get in front of the judge, and my attorney, who was an attorney I was paying for, by the way, freaking every penny I had, I been paying for him when I was out there homeless. And he yeah, he says, oh yeah, we want to do drug court in a 402 reduction. And I told him to sit down and said, Your Honor, that's not what I want. Right. I found out about this rehab. I got a plane ticket, this Friday. Like, I'll be in Seattle, checked in Friday, right? He says, oh yeah, I'm familiar with that program. And said, the only thing I want is I want to play in a band. So I'm only 20 years old. I don't want to ruin the rest of my life, right? And uh so he, asked me if I understand, hey, plea in advance means you mess this up, you're sense the mandatory minimum on each of these, and they run consecutively and not concurrently. And so you're looking at, a 9.5 year minimum sentence, if you mess this up. And I said, let's freaking go, man. And I did it. I went to that program. I was the last person at the Seattle Salvation Army admitted under the age of 21. They changed the policy while I was there. I got 63 write-ups in 180 days. I broke literally about every rule except for the few cardinal sins. No stealing, no fraternizing, and
No fighting.
No tobacco during work hours.
Yeah.
Which everyone just had their own sneaky way around that. But
so why didn't they kick you out?
They didn't kick me out.
Yeah, why didn't they?
Yeah, I have no idea, man, because I wrote really good papers. A lot of things on entitlement. We just had a graduate last night that was kind of the common thing we were talking about when he got here, and his entitlement. And he used to come to my office, every couple of weeks and ask me for some validation. How do you think I'm doing, bro? And he was probably about 2 months into this program. And I said, do you want me to be nice to you, or do you want me to be honest with you? And he's like, lay it on me. And I said, well, I think you're a little entitled asshole, and I want to hit you half the time. But let me tell you why. It's because you are exactly who I was when I was 20 years old. And I can, seeing that and feeling that connection with you. And I'm just inward, I'm trying to say the things that I think that I would hear at that same age, right? Mm-hmm. Like thinking that, oh yeah, I'm going to be able to prevent the same pitfalls as him. And yet I can almost physically see the information go in one ear and right out the other.
Yep.
And I was like, damn it.
So you completed Salvation Army.
So I completed the Salvation Army February 27th of 2013, the day after I turned 21. My 21st birthday was spent chairing an AA meeting.
So how long were you in Sally's?
6 months. August 27th, 2012 through February 27th, 2013.
Wow. And then what'd you do after that? Did you come back to St. George or no?
After that, I came back to St. George thinking I was going to enter into the second part of drug court, but the courts had somehow forgotten all about me. So it took a few months of just being in limbo. And I was staying in a halfway house. Got a job in the morning doing asphalt, job in the evening working the butcher block at Albertsons, and bought a little moped, and I was doing pretty good, right? And then met up with some old friends, this couple that they had been in recovery at the time, and then they asked me to move in with them, and I do, and like 2 weeks after that, I'm coming home, finding them with needles in their arms, and I still didn't relapse. I'd come home, clean up, next day, let's go to a meeting, right? Because the court finally said, hey, you're doing 1 year of supervised whatever private probation, and then 2 years of bench probation, and a few $1,000s of fines. And so I wasn't ready to, screw that up still with what was hanging over my head. And so I was really active in the recovery scene. I had a sponsor, a sponsee. I was working 2 jobs and still hitting probably 4 or 5 meetings a week.
Wow.
The recovery community out here used to be really outstanding. You'd show up to a meeting, and if they didn't know you, you have 5, 6 people after each one. Hey, you want to go grab coffee? Do you have phone numbers? Do you have a sponsor? How can I help you? Unfortunately, that landscape is very different now here in the recovery scene.
It's still pretty good though, don't you think, or no?
It is if you know the people already.
Yeah. Okay.
It doesn't have that inviting, welcoming feel that I loved.
Gotcha.
Down here, at least, you really have to make the effort to get to know people. And that part for me has always been really hard. Despite my outgoing persona, this is who I am during work hours, right? And when I get home, man, I'm a shut-in, right? When
Mm-hmm.
there's no people around, I don't reach out, I don't do things. Like I'm a very solo person.
Right.
And
So
so
what happens now? So you're
so what
sober, you
happened so what happens now is I break up with that girlfriend because she's still doing her own thing. And an old friend from high school who she's doing well introduces me to, her roommate. And then I get her pregnant. um and find out I'm going to be a dad. And I start to, like, oh my God. But things are going great, honestly. Like, again, 2 jobs, doing these things. Like, I felt pretty solid in it. And then my family members started to tell me that there's no way I could stay clean and sober and be a parent. And that was rough. And I was like, why? Like, the people who I had been living with, like, they got divorced, and so they were going to sell the house. They bought it in foreclosure. They're going to sell me this house for, $40,000. And so I was in line to buy a house. I had all these things going. Like, I wasn't stressing on it like nearly as much as I, could have been. I
mm-hmm.
certainly hadn't had any thoughts of using. But my whole life growing up had been really defined by when people would tell me to do things, I would do the opposite, even if it was
Mm-hmm.
something I wanted to do, right? If I had the idea I wanted to do something, I'd tell them about it. And they'd be like, yeah, you should do that. I'd be like, you know what? Screw you. I'm now going to do the opposite thing and figure it out,
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought maybe it was my addiction talking to me saying that I can do this, um, and maybe, my loved ones do just want what's best for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did all the things they said. um, I moved up to, Kingston, Idaho, way up in the panhandle, with my mom and my daughter's mother. And we started, living and working up there. There was no recovery groups available up there really at the time. There's these 2 AA meetings at the opposite end of the county where there's
Mm-hmm.
about 6, 7 people that they have more, you know, years sober than at that time really about it. I had been alive, and I'm pretty sure that's just their weekly, twice a week get together just to check in with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Every once in a while, a kid from the courts would, find their way in there, and so it was very different. I didn't like it, and so I was giving up my whole support network and hoping that I could kind of mend fences with my mom, and making amends with her didn't work. It kind of got rejected. And so I had the hope that I could kind of do a living amends and be like, hey, maybe I'll feel better by seeing her be a better grandma to my child than,
Mm-hmm.
the childhood that I got. And like, while it did make me happy because she was a much better grandma than she was a mom, like, I still, it wasn't enough, right? That didn't give me the closure on things. And I was getting frustrated, and things didn't work out with my daughter's mom and I. And so I'm, paying my mom to help raise my kid, in rent, and I'm helping pay Layla's mom's rent. They had convinced me to, I should go to college for IT because there will always be work in IT. And I had zero interest in it. So I'm in a place I don't want to be, going to a school I don't want to go to for a degree I don't want. But I'm still just telling myself, right, I need to take the suggestions because I don't know what's good for me. Um, and somewhere along the way, yeah, I had a breakdown, and I had a relapse. And this time, uh yeah, for the first little while, so I was working changing tires, throughout the week, about 3 4 days a week, While in between, I was a full-time student, and on the weekends, I was working at a gas station, double shifts, raising my kid. And customer came in, and he just, it was one of those almost like boredom relapses where guy just comes in and says, you want to go get high? And yeah, sure. We go, do some Suboxone or whatever. And start abusing that a bit, but I'm keeping it still very under wraps and nobody knows. Um, and then, come finals time, now it's like there's not enough hours in the day to study. And I was like, well, I'm a junkie, and I'm holding it together pretty well. And I've never been a tweaker, right? I hated my Adderall. I'll never be a tweaker, right? And so I asked the customer, hey, man, freaking, because he very clearly is, and I get a dime bag. And and then I take the trip all the way, 40 minutes away to the one place that'll sell you syringes, and found a wiki how on how to shoot meth. Um, and I was off to the races. And it turns out, surprise, I am a tweaker too. and and I only was able to keep that under wraps for 2-3 months, and I lost everything. Right, I was getting kicked out of the house on my daughter's first day of school, going to whatever pre-K. And that hurt. I find the pictures from that where, Layla's got this, because she had seen us, fighting there in my mom's house. And so she knows things are bad, and she's scared to go to school for her first day. And every photo of her after that, man, she's never had the same look in her eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for the rest of her life. And and that was hard. That was really hard. So I somehow managed to finish school, due to a clerical error my first semester. When it came around time to graduate, they said that I had failed a class that I didn't fail. And now it had been past 2 years, so I could no longer appeal it either. And so I didn't get my degree in IT. But I still managed to just, lie and tell people, because apparently nobody fact checks your degrees usually if it's just some associates.
Mm-hmm.
So I got some like IT job, working in the field for a few months, and I hated it. I was miserable. So I left.
So you're still using this whole time?
Oh yeah,
Mm.
yeah. The moment
So
I got,
I hate to rush you, but
you're fine.
they only want me to do an hour, and I want to get to the
Yeah,
solution because you have such a great
yeah.
recovery story.
No.
You
Of
have such
course.
an incredible, like, what happened now, what it's like now. So when
Um,
was your last bottom?
my last bottom was May 5th of 2020.
Wow.
The addiction had gotten so bad. I was, getting firearms in Montana where they're cheap, and selling them for, drugs in Missoula or in Spokane where drugs are cheap and guns are expensive. And
Yeah.
and so I was doing a back and forth. Something went wrong, and I got kidnapped. I got the, piss beat out of me, with an inch in my life.
Wow.
And yeah, these guys were gonna, that was the end of the line, man. And I'm sitting in the back, in this trunk, and they made a long affair of the whole thing. And I
This on like a drug deal or a gun deal or both?
drug deal, kind of, yeah. So drug deal going towards Spokane. We made a pit stop where I was, and the guy who I was with basically gave away the bikers money, and he was too messed up. And so when he came to, he thought I took it. And next thing you know, I'm in the trunk of a car, and for something that wasn't on me. Dude was just too messed up to remember what he had done with
Wow.
money. And I was really irritated about being kidnapped. I was like, dude, hurry up, you know. They're just hit me, and oh yeah, you need to. They're like trying to do this whole like baptism thing on me and tell me I need to pray and ask for forgiveness, and I just spit out.
Wow.
I was just like, you guys are stupid. And yeah, and then I'm in the back seat or in the trunk of this car, all taped up, and pass out for a little while, and wake up, and I had been bleeding so much, right, that it was just like the tape had come loose. I'd get the tape off my hands, off my feet, and wrap my belts around my hands, thinking I want to, get them if one of them comes after me. But I woke up and it's a McDonald's drive-through, man. McDonald's saved my life because these guys had decided to stop at a drive-through before they decided to finish all this. And so I'd probably been passed out for a while. And there's only one McDonald's drive-through in Shoshone County, Idaho, and it's right across the street from the hospital. And so I wait till she says pull up to the next window, because then there's going to be a car in front, a car behind. There's going to be a person right there at the window. What are you really going to do? And I just run. I pull that glowing tab and I
How'd you
run.
get out of the trunk?
They got glowing handles in there, man,
Oh,
for exactly that reason. If people get locked in there by accident. So
okay.
yeah, so there's a big bright glowing handle, right? And I had worked the tape off of me, and so I just booked it over to the hospital and didn't realize COVID was a real thing. And you know, going to the hospital, blah blah. They give me a CT scan, and I just leave out of the hospital covered in blood, and go detox for 2 weeks out in Montana. My mom had moved out there, and yeah, so I go detox, and I get a ticket down to Vegas, trying to get into the Salvation Army down there. It was a 43-hour bus ride because the route from Salt Lake to St. George was closed due to COVID. So they made you go down, like out to Washington, all the way down the PCH and back. 43-hour
Wow.
bus ride. And in that 43 hours, the Salvation Army, I'd called ahead. They said because I was alumni, they would waive the 2-week quarantine. They changed that policy in that 2-day bus ride. And
Mm.
ain't no way I'm going to stay in Vegas for 2 weeks waiting to quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
So I was on a Vegas corner, for 3 days before I managed to get my mom to get me a shuttle ticket out here. But I had to find a way to the shuttle. I'll tell you, by miracle, kid pulls into the truck stop parking lot. He's got a flat and he doesn't know ass from elbows. And I say, hey, man, I'll change your tire in 5 minutes flat. You give me a ride to the airport to the shuttle. He says, okay. I'd changed tires for years. It was my job. And I change his tire real quick. He gets me to the airport. I'm on the shuttle, with 10 minutes to spare, and came out here, didn't know what to do. I came to Switch Point actually. And yeah, I went to the homeless shelter and got into their rehab crossover. I did 28 days there. They graduated me, 32 days early, and probably because I was a pain in the ass. Stayed on I reconnected with my best friend from high school, man. We've been friends for 17 years. And he let me stay on his couch for a year, got back on my feet, and
Wow.
yeah, started working for some startups, doing some really cool stuff.
So
Time
were
to say, I
you
won't get into
immersed
it.
back in like the 12-step kind of
You
world, or
know,
what were you doing?
somewhat like I was going to, probably 2, 3 meetings a week. I was doing a little AA, a little NA. And then I got to Switch Point. Like I started working at Switch Point, and then I started to really, get into the recovery thing more. They didn't have any meetings there, so I started a Thursday night meeting over there that's still going to this day. Um, and then when I became a case manager, they started assigning me specifically clients who had issues with addiction. Um, and it was great. And then the ranch comes by one day and they say, hey, we're new out here. They show me the video and I'm like, oh man, that looks cool. I don't know if I need to relapse or get a job application, but I want to go there, you know and yeah, sure enough, time goes by and I get poached from Switch Point by a nursing home to do admissions. And then 2 months into that, ranch gives me a call and says, "Hey, would you like a job?" And here I am doing case management, doing admissions, and I love it. And yeah, in the trunk of that car, man, I did all 12 steps. I'll tell you really quick. When I came to consciousness, man, it's like I realized in a moment I was freaking powerless. That there's nothing I could do about it. Asked for some help, and then yeah, I thought about all those mistakes and what I was willing to do if I had the chance to get out. When I came to consciousness, man, that blood tape came right off.
Wow.
I'll tell
That's
you,
pretty
yeah,
cool.
I had gone from accepting that I was going to die to just this. The one thing I'd never really done in my life was like truly listening to myself and my gut and those things, the things that somewhere in the back of my head I knew were like really the morally right things to do, and things to do for myself to be the best version of myself. I had just let that voice die. I had done everything I could to try and smother it, and so over the years, that's all I've tried to cultivate, and that's what I tell a lot of clients, to cultivate as well. It's like, you've got, it's not just that little, there's the angel and the devil, on your shoulder thing.
Mhm.
It's so much deeper than that, right? Because there's the you that wants to do the right thing, and then there's the you that wants to do the wrong thing, and then there's, should you make a good decision, bad decision, here, there. It's so much more in depth than that, but there is way, 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 way back there, I feel like, a voice that knows what decision you need to make to be the best version of yourself, right?
Yeah.
And figuring out what those balances in your life are for you. For me, my recovery is, a lot of it is my fitness now, right? Like I'm big into, I go to the gym 6 days a week, hour and a half a day, and just started doing cardio. But yeah, I go to one meeting a week right now. I've been trying to do for the last about 3 months, every 30 days, add something new into my life. 30 days ago, I got back in the gym after my daughter had left for the summer, and actually hired someone to do a workout and diet plan for me so I could start losing some weight. And then,
Nice.
30 days after that, started doing the one meeting a week. 30 days after that, I'm on Chantix trying to quit, vaping and nicotine, and finally be off of that dependence. And I have no idea what's next, but I listen to all the things that just I know I need to be doing to make me happy, make me complete, make me feel satisfied in my recovery. And
Yeah.
um, I'm so blessed to have this job here, and to be part of the ranch. And I wish I'd known the ranch existed. I went to 6 rehabs between the Salvation Army and Crossover, the recent one. And this place is like the Salvation Army, but with, as far as the connection and the brotherhood part of things go, without the, you need to have, between 40 and 50-degree hospital corner angles on your bed, no creases in your sheets, military haircut, shirt
I
tucked.
worked at I worked at Sally's in Salt Lake for a year.
Yeah, I loved the Salvation Army. It saved my life, 1,000%. Um, and what I see the ranch has been built to be is the, almost more loving version of that, you know, and and I love that, and I love to be a part of this experience.
That's awesome, bud. That's awesome. What a great story. I wish we had actually another hour to keep talking. It's just such a miracle, and it's pretty cool to see what God can do, and
Truly,
the miracles that happen when we just decide to give up, right? And
absolutely.
the many paradoxes of recovery, we have to surrender to win.
Yeah, ain't that a thing?
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Well, man, thanks so much. I've only known you maybe, I don't know, 6 months, maybe more than that, maybe a year. I don't know. I
Yeah,
lose track of
coming up
time.
on a year.
But you're kind of Stefan's like this tip of the spear on
Mhm.
Renaissance. Is the guy that always has to have the phone on him, and is always the first point of contact with people, and that's a huge thing for guys. That's a huge thing when they see and feel that first person. They know, yeah, maybe this place is the right place for me. So thanks, Bud, for all you do for everybody down there, and thank you so much for sharing your story. And hopefully I'll hear more details on some of that stuff because I've got a lot of questions.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. If you ever want a round two or anything, let's go for
Sounds
it.
good, man. Well, thanks again, bro, and I sure love you.
Awesome. Thank you. Love you too, man. Have a good night.
Take care, buddy. We'll see you.
Bye.